What's up everyone? I'm just testing out this weird setup. I'm doing using my iPad, but today I'm at one of my favorite places, Smack Studios. It's in Castle Hill. You guys should definitely look into this place if you want to do some photography or if you need a studio space. So here's a quick tour, and that's DIEN. Hey DIEN. I'm just showing them. Is it cool if I show them just quickly the space? Cool. So yeah, this is when you first come in, you meet this handsome man right here from Vietnam. And then when you go to the back, here's where all the magic happens. So yeah, awesome space for if you need to do any photo or video stuff. DIEN's just recently upgraded it with some cool curtains to help with the reverb and audio. It's also blacked out the roof, so this is a great thing to do for product photography, so you don't get any weird reflections in shiny stuff. But yeah, DIEN's got everything you need. Some pretty cool equipment, lights, stands, monitors, triggers, and foam boards, and yeah, an awesome space if you need a cyclorama in Castle Hill. Come check it out. I'll leave links to this space and all that below. We're just chilling here at Smack Studios in Castle Hill.
What are we up to today?
So far, I went and caught up with an old high school friend near your place in Bonnery Heights at the...
Back in your home.
Yeah, back in the hood.
Back in the hood, yeah.
What's that garden centre?
Bonnery.
And that cafe there is called the Hayes or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know, but I just know it as the Bonnery Garden Centre.
Yeah, so the cafe we used to catch up at.
Yeah, 5 minute walk from mum and dad's.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry, I know this is a really random podcast. I just called DIEN out of the blue and was like, hey man, do you want to catch up? It's been a really long time. And I suddenly just set up this iPad with this audio.
It's a crude setup, but it works.
Yeah.
As you can see, camera
iPhones,
1, camera 2.
Yeah, on a C-stand, and we're just going for it. So recently, I've been trying this whole YouTube podcast thing, and yeah, DIEN was just asking me how that's all going. And yeah, it's been definitely a cringy and awkward process, but I'm trying my best to just enjoy the process.
That's how we all start, don't we? Whatever we do, we don't start off that great.
Yeah, but I guess we don't have any agenda or main topic. We just go on the flow, but I'll try and steer it in some way. I guess let's start off. We should focus on you, bro.
Me? You know, the funny thing is I never talk about myself. I rarely ever talk about myself.
Oh, okay. Maybe I can...
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting because I think I'm just by nature, I'm a private person.
Yeah.
Like I'm very private.
Yeah.
So even when I'm out socially, I talk to people like, yeah, I'll bring up certain things that come by about life. But generally, that's just been my nature, is to not really talk about myself. I've always been like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity to maybe get a deeper slice into who DIEN is.
Yeah.
But do you reckon you could tell us a bit about yourself, bro?
Well, what do you want to know, and where should we start?
Yeah, I guess we could start from the beginning.
Like
Look,
what? Beginning when I got to Australia, because that's probably a more interesting story than anything.
Yeah, whatever you feel like is interesting.
Like I think I brought up this story at my wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably would have been the first time you heard it. Was when how my parents migrated here.
Yeah, I vaguely remember
how they left Vietnam. You know, they paid for a boat ride with nothing but mum, dad, and myself. I think it was a couple of nights one night they tried, wasn't successful because, you know, they were trying to hide from authorities. And then somehow, I think from memory, they got a second call up. Said, tonight we've got to go. So they made that scary trek, middle of the night, hopping on a boat, pushing the boat out.
Wait, were you here? Like, how old were you? Were you there with
us? Yeah, I was 18 months old.
Oh, okay.
I was just a baby. So if you ask me, I don't remember a single thing. I think my earliest memory is actually arriving in Australia. That's probably, or when I was in Singapore.
Yeah.
But I can get to the Singapore part. But before that, yeah, they hopped on the boat, did their best to escape without getting caught by the authorities, which at the time, obviously, or after the war, was the communist government, because they didn't want anyone to leave. So mum and dad hopped off and we made the trek, and they were out at sea for about 3 days, out in the ocean, no food, or running out of food, running out of water.
Is this with any of your siblings?
No, I believe my sister, I think mum may have been pregnant too at the time, but very...
Are you the oldest? No.
I am the oldest.
Oh, you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest, only by 2 years.
Yep.
Sister came after once we arrived in Australia.
I see.
But when we left, running out of food, running out of water, we were lucky in the sense that you often hear these stories and you hear about people not making it, or you hear about people getting
Thai pirates.
robbed by pirates. Not the typical pirates that people think of
Yeah.
in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But just fishermen that are opportunistic. So what happened was a big Japanese, I believe it was a transport ship, spotted us. I don't know exactly where, but in between Vietnam and Singapore, Indonesia, and the captain said, "You know what? We need to pick up these refugees, because if we don't, there's a massive storm and monsoon coming, and they're not going to make it. They're going to perish." So he made the hard decision to pick us up, because he had a job to do too. He had to make his delivery somewhere, but also I don't think it was easy for him just to pick us up. I think he had to ask around, for example, the Japanese government, saying, "Look, got refugees, going to pick them up, going to rescue them, but not sure where we're going to drop them off." So I think when they saved us, or they rescued us, I believe the captain made a call around to various governments. So I think there was a chat between the Japanese government, Singaporean government, saying, "Look, one of our ships has got refugees on board, and we need to drop them off. Would you be willing to take them in?" And I think what happened was, initially it was a no, for whatever reason. So the captain, I remember Mum telling me, the captain said, "Look, what we'll do, we'll pick you up. We need to make our delivery, wherever that was. I don't know where it was. And then we'll take you back to Japan. And we could become refugees in Japan." Because during the time after the war, I think there were lots of refugees, a lot of Vietnamese people leaving the country by boat. So it was quite common to pick up refugees. But I think during that time on board, the Japanese government was able to negotiate with the Singaporean government to take us in as refugees. And I believe there was some sort of payment deal. It was something like $10,000 per head to take us in. So the Japanese government paid the Singaporean government to take us in. And and that's how we ended up in Singapore. Once that was approved, they dropped us off at Singapore, and we were there in the the refugee camp in Singapore. So we were there for about 3 months. So once we were there safely, we were there for 3 months, lived a normal life, and then got, I believe, sponsored by my uncle, who was already in Australia at the time. And that's how we ended up here today in this great country. So yeah,
Crazy.
Lucky, very, very blessed, the way I see it.
Thanks to the Japanese.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Singaporean government too.
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel like when I tell this story, I don't really completely feel the experience, because it's more of a journey that my parents went through, like the fear of not knowing if we're going to live or survive. I believe that was very true.
Yeah, pretty fun.
We're heading out to sea in open waters and not knowing where you're going.
Yeah.
I don't think we, or they knew where they were going. I believed I heard another story from mum and dad also saying that they were perhaps going round and round without, going around in circles without knowing.
Wow.
There was no guidance, no nothing. They just took off on a
Shit.
boat with literally hardly any food left. Because you couldn't take a lot, because the boat was packed full of
How many
refugees.
people were on the boat?
Oh, I think about 80.
80.
I've got
That's
a photo
a
at
lot.
home.
Oh, wow.
I do have a photo at home with, you can just barely make me out. Dad was holding me. It was taken above the Japanese ship. So we've got a few photos on record. I'm sure there's more somewhere. I don't have access to it all, but
Yeah.
the couple of photos I do have, I guess is very precious in our family.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the refugee story, man. I've heard many. They all have like some similarities.
Yeah, totally.
My parents went through the same sort of thing with my older brother and sister. So they were, I think that my brother could have been like 4, and my older sister would have been 5 or 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they witnessed people dying, jumping off the boat, drinking the seawater because it was so
Yeah,
hungry.
there was no water. Like, your parents must have been out at sea for quite a while,
Yeah.
from the sounds of it.
And I believe they ended up in Malaysia refugee camp,
Yep.
and then ended up in Australia. But I've never fully documented or spoken to them like in detail of how it all went down. Just got rough ideas.
I think it's important if you could ever document it, because I believe it's a great part of your family history.
Yeah.
They were the ones that took the risk
Yeah.
to provide, I guess, their children, yourself, a better life here.
I do remember my mum sharing, she said, they asked her, do you want to go to America or Australia? And my dad wanted to go to America because he was into music, rock and roll music. He was playing rock and roll music for the soldiers during the war. He wanted to go to America, but my mum, she, for some reason, said Australia. I could have been. We could have ended up in America.
I think I had a similar story too,
Yeah,
because my dad had relatives in the US already.
yeah.
And I think, obviously, with family, they wanted to go there, but
Yeah.
mum had family here too, so...
It's crazy, eh? The
Yeah.
little the butterfly effect. There's little decisions.
I know, you could have easily been a United States citizen.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have met you.
that's true. The whole immigrant story is full on. I guess we could fast forward a little bit
Yeah.
because you are a photographer now.
Have been for about, what? Jeez. Almost 17 years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did you go from that whole immigration thing, being born in Australia? Oh, not born in Australia, but coming to Australia, and then what's the kind of highlight reel of you from there to being a
Highlight reel.
photographer?
All right, the fast forward version, I'd say let's start from school, high school. What led me to here, I guess, was picking up the earliest versions of Photoshop. I don't even know what number it was, but I remember in the mid-90s, I had a copy. I don't know how I got it, but I had a copy of Photoshop. And started using it, started just playing around with it. The tools were very simple back then. The layers were still there, but the tools themselves were very basic. There was dodge and burn, there was stamp cloning, very basic. Not even the heel brush wasn't even in there back in the day.
It is like Windows 95 or something.
Yeah, totally. Windows 95, 98.
Beige computer.
I mean, the layout of Photoshop was great. It's not the dark,
Cool.
charcoal, background or the custom background that you get today. It was that typical grey Windows window, user interface. So it started from there. I really enjoyed retouching women. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I used to have,
Retouching, not touching women.
no, not touching women, retouching. So I had a lot of back in those days as a young teenage boy, I had a lot of Ralph FHM magazine.
Okay.
So what I'd do is I'd scan the photos and retouch them.
Oh
further.
man, you had a scanner as well.
I had a scanner back then.
Whoa.
So an old Canon scanner.
That's
I think
full on.
something before that. But what inspired me wasn't so much my own work of retouching, there were a group of guys on the internet. I forgot what they're called, but they were a wonderful group of early retouchers. So they were, as a hobby, they were doing what I was doing. They would scan existing photos, retouch it, then post it online for other people to see.
Okay.
And then to inspire people, to teach people how to retouch, how to smooth skin, all that. So I was in the thick of it in the early days, and I learned from them.
How the hell did you discover
So
all
I
this?
did early days of the internet. I don't remember, 96, 97.
Because there was no Google.
It was, there was Alta Vista.
I didn't even know
Ask
that.
Jeeves, you know, all the earliest
Yahoo.
I mean, Google was there too, but they weren't as dominant.
Yeah.
There was about 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
But
so
I remember Alta Vista was one of the ones I used all the time.
So it was like some sort of online forum photography
Yeah.
website.
So it was
or
a
something?
forum. It was mostly a forum. You'd go check. They would post an image they did. You could download it, read on how they did it, what they worked, and some guys never revealed how they did it. But what you would try and do is, I would try and emulate. I picked the best guys. Okay, wow, his retouching was superb.
Is this 56K days or ADSL?
56K days. Yeah. So it was slow as.
Oh my God.
But the file size were manageable. You know, I think they were 200 kilobytes, 300 kilobyte files. But, you know, they're instantaneous these days. But back then, you know, you'd have to wait a couple of seconds. But it wasn't that bad.
Who taught you how to like scan it, put it in the computer, upload it?
Did it myself.
You just figured it out.
Self-taught. So ever since then, I had the love for using Photoshop, retouching. And I did it. I had literally, by the time I was done, I had hundreds of photos that I had brushed. I used all sorts of techniques, the old techniques of just skin blurring. That was the first thing I learned. And then it's funny, as time evolves, and then as the photography industry, like I used to look at hundreds of thousands of photos, you know, from photographers, because I wasn't a photographer back then.
Yeah.
But I'd look at a photo and go, oh, how'd they do that? You know, that was always my curiosity. And that curiosity led to, I would say that kickstarted the fire in me to become a photographer or a great editor or a great retoucher. So I've got heaps of experience with Photoshop, thousands of hours, you know,
That's insane.
behind it.
So that's where it started. It was just
That's
you
completely
mucking around
where it started.
with first
But
copies
at
of
that
Photoshop.
point, I had no idea I was going to be a photographer.
Right.
At that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. As any, you know, 16-year-old, 17, 18-year-old. Finished high school, still love Photoshop, but never considered art because it's something you don't really do when you grow up in an Asian family.
Yeah.
They want you to do the typical things, right? Study hard, do well, you know, and if you do really well, you could become a doctor, a lawyer, a pharmacist. They all seem to be the common theme back then.
Did your parents want you to become a...
Oh, 100%.
What did they want you to become?
Oh, any of those.
Any of those? Okay.
You know, or get yourself a cushy office job. Only because they work so hard. And the way they viewed it, they worked in an industry where, like, Mum worked her butt off, you know, for decades. She worked as a seamstress. She was sewing clothes.
A lot of Vietnamese women
A lot of Vietnamese women did that. And, you know, as you know, they spend hours, like, they're not 8-hour days. They're 15, 16-hour days. Sometimes if they're in a rush, 18 hours.
Did she bring stuff home?
Absolutely.
Did you help
Mum and
Mum
Dad?
out?
Yes.
Me too.
So as a child, what do? You help fold.
Yeah.
Or you help clip the excess stitching,
Yep.
you know, for Supre.
Yeah.
Yeah, Supre was the biggest one. I remember just thousands of Supre clothing. It was always different.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the biggest ones, I think. I believe Supre employed a lot of Vietnamese people, even without them even realising it.
Yeah.
You know?
Crazy.
You know? And that was Mum. And Dad got educated, went to TAFE, he became a electronics engineer in avionics. So he worked at the airport
Wow.
for most of his career.
Yeah.
He worked at the airport fixing radars, electronic devices on planes before kind of technology phased him out.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point you're trying to make is they came here, worked their ass off.
Yeah,
Mum
totally.
did a lot of labouring
Totally.
stuff. Dad did a bit of education stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, they want you to.
And you know, it's a very common story for Vietnamese families or any other migrant family. You know, you talk to 10 Vietnamese, and I bet you 8 out of 10, their mum would have most likely been sewing. You know, and then eventually, mum. Good thing is, mum got out of it.
Okay.
Over time, she built a childcare career, or she left it and she diverted into childcare, which is probably one of the best things she ever did.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she did childcare for quite a while before she retired.
Okay, so you finished high school. Mum, dad's working.
Went to uni right after high school.
What
So
course?
same thing. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I took the course that I fell into, which was computing.
Computing, okay.
So computing wasn't too bad. I knew I wasn't a great programmer because what I fell into was there was so much programming involved, and I did not have a knack for it. I did not have this natural ability to program. So what happened was, as I was doing that, I was still scanning
Mucking
and
around
retouching for fun for the first 3 or 4 years of uni. That was my hobby.
In which uni?
I went to University of Western Sydney doing a degree, Bachelor of Computing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I struggled the first year or two, kind of adjusting to uni life. And, I was saying to my wife the other day, doing 5 subjects was considered full-time, and it was too much. Plus I had a part-time job working 2 days.
What was your part-time job?
Same thing. I had this great knack with computers. I've always had. So I worked do you remember the brand Creative? Creative Sound Blaster,
Yeah.
Creative Sound. I worked for them. So I worked in their hardware division repairs because I knew how to fix. So apart from Photoshop, when I was growing up, I loved computers. Dad taught me how to pull it apart, put it together, build it.
Oh, okay.
And I've ever since then till now, I have a love for computer hardware.
Tinkering with computers.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
cool.
To me, it's almost like, a mechanic in a car. You totally understand it.
Yeah.
Well, it was me and computer hardware. I totally understood it. So it's great that you touched on that.
I didn't know this. You never told me this.
Yeah,
I've known you for a while, and you never told me this.
There's a reason. There's a reason, kind of, where I am today because of those two things. So I'll get to that point because you just reminded me
Sparks
of why I am where I am today.
Yeah.
So that computer hardware, you have to be quite technical. It's quite logical and technical, which I am, I think, naturally. But then there's a side of me that's got this creative flair. I think I've always had it.
Okay.
Through high school, touches of flair, creative thinking, but that logical side was still very strong.
Yeah.
So understanding how that computer worked, all the components that you require, and I've built many computers over the years, my own and for other people. Yeah. But anyway, I worked for Creative, fixing people's computers. So I could diagnose a problem, replace components. Like I knew this is the hardware failed, if the hard drive's dead, or if the video card carked it.
Side note, because I love computers too. Creative, they didn't just do sound cards?
They did graphics cards too. They were one of the earliest graphics.
And they were in Australia? They're an Australian company?
Yeah, they had an office here.
Okay.
Creative Labs had an office here.
Where was the office when you went to work?
In Artarmon.
Oh my God. And where were you living?
Bonnyrigg.
Bonnyrigg
So
to
I used to travel
Artarmon.
2 hours. Yeah, I used to travel 2 hours.
Train and bus?
Yeah, Dad dropped me off at the
Oh, 'cause he'd
early
go-
in the morning. Because he'd go to work, he'd drop me off.
at the airport.
I'd take a train for about an hour and then walk half an hour to the office.
Yeah.
So it was an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
2 hours. Or if I had the opportunity, I'd drive sometimes, but it was a 2 hour drive too.
Yeah. Okay. So you're around 20s now, right?
I was 19, 20, yes.
Studying uni, part-time at Creative.
Part-time at Creative for about 2 years.
Okay.
Before, I think Creative, the owner had a contract from Creative to be the distributor for Australia. Essentially, that's what it was. So he was the distributor. But it was all Creative products.
Right.
And I think he had a few other computer brands that he sold through Harvey Norman and distributed through them as well. But it was fun working there because I had access to all the newest, latest hardware. There was like computer parts everywhere, old, broken, new. Like some stuff that was so damaged that they had to toss it out. I don't know if I was allowed, but I retrieved some of the broken stuff, took it home. Dad fixed it because it was electronics.
Yeah.
So the problems he saw, I had all these high-end speakers from back then. I loved it.
That's so
Video
cool.
cards, I had great video cards.
What were they back then? Radeon and
Oh my god, Voodoo GFX, yeah, something like that. I don't remember the names.
And I'm guessing you would have learned because your dad would be like, okay, this is how we fix it.
Well, no, I wasn't. I was never great at the electrical side of things.
Okay.
But Dad knew when he looked at it, diagnosed it. He knew what the issues were. So
The capacitors and all that stuff.
especially the
soldering.
capacitors. So he'll go, this capacitor's blown. I'll get you a new one. Let's
Wow.
replace it. And you know what? A lot of the times that was the issue. It was a blown capacitor. He has all the spare parts at home. His dad had a collection of, and then he'd just take the old one off and solder on the new one. And Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, son, plug it
we
in.
had like a $500 speaker system working again. So. Yeah, I didn't take too much, but I took what I liked,
Yeah.
and they were good stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's a bit of your techie computer
so that's the
side.
techie computer side, and I've always had that, and I think that helped me through uni, in the sense that it was more it wasn't hardware related, but it gave me enough base to help me get through the bachelor's degree. So it kept me in the computer realm, software, all that to get me through. Because had I not had an understanding of computers, I think I would have struggled much more. A lot of people jump into IT without knowing IT, and those people I felt, struggled so much more.
Right.
But what happened was my degree changed a bit. I got to specialize in web development.
Right.
Because the programming side of web development was much easier than all the other stuff that I struggled with.
Right.
So that's where that comes back to being creative, because I started going towards kind of the user interface, the designing websites, designing the look. And that, with the Photoshop side, that helped me. It gave me a design side. I started designing things using Photoshop. And from Photoshop, I picked up Illustrator. That's what most graphic designers used back then to create artwork. And I was so inspired, I started buying art magazines. Getting inspired, I started creating my own designs. And so for a number of years, I was a web developer / graphic designer
Right.
in my early to mid 20s. Like, I had another job, but I did that on the side as a side gig. People asked me, hey, can you build a website? I said, yeah, sure, let's do it.
And this is.
And I would charge money. This is when I was 23, 25.
And a website back then was HTML. No.
Mostly HTML and basic HTML. It was moving from basic HTML to starting to use CSS.
And you knew all that.
Yes.
Coding.
I learned CSS and HTML came easy to me. I understood it.
And what year is this now? Are we talking 90?
This is 2003, 2005,
Okay.
between there. So I finished uni around 2003.
Okay.
I went off and worked for a friend who was already in IT to help him with, help him build websites. Like, I project managed some.
Facebook just would have started to kick off
I believe
now.
2005, was it?
I remember high school. I finished high school 2004, and I think Facebook just came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. And then I do remember there was this phase where websites
Yep.
and all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was really heavily into that. And what happened was, during that time, I had an opportunity to start a business with someone, but I was very green, or wet behind the ears, as they used to say, and it fell apart.
Okay.
It was I was investing in something, and it went to crap. I felt I made a big mistake. I felt gypped. I felt, kind of, and that threw me off a bit, because when you're that young, and people throw you that much money or promises towards you, you think, I'm going to make it. Oh, I want to do this. It was a lot of money, but it ended up being a big learning lesson for me, and a bit of a painful financial one. So that kind of put me in a space where I knew. Actually, let's go back a bit. When I left uni,
Yeah.
I thought I was going to go into IT, but I didn't love it.
Okay.
I could do it, but I didn't love it. But in the back of my head, I knew I was going to run a business one day. I just knew. I had that drive, and I thought that big opportunity
Was
was
going
going to catapult me
I see.
in that direction.
I see.
But when it didn't, it really hurt. But it also grounded me again, because in my mind, I was like, it's gonna work. It's gonna be a success. I'm gonna make a shit ton of money. I'm young, and when you're young, you know, rose-colored goggles.
And this was, I'm guessing, this business like a graphics design website
No, it wasn't.
building?
It was totally different.
No?
I invested in something that I shouldn't have.
Do you
Yeah.
mind sharing, or that's...
No, I don't mind sharing. It was a patent for something quite big. Okay, and I had a massive contract for it. Had it worked out, I would have been a millionaire at the age of 23, 24, 25. Yeah. And it was real. It wasn't bullshit. But the part that wasn't real was it didn't work.
So it's some sort of physical product?
Yeah. It was a physical product that we patented. The guy needed an investor, and I thought I'd step in.
What was...
I borrowed some money, and it was a formula for concrete.
A formula for concrete?
Yeah, a new type of concrete. So there's always different formulas.
Oh,
But when you sell the license. And when you sell the license and it goes worldwide, it's a lot of money.
Okay.
So, you know, it was legit in the sense that we had a capital finance company work with us, paid a lot of money for patents because because people wanted to buy it.
This sounds so familiar for some reason.
Maybe I told you before. I have no idea.
Or it was on the... Could it have been on the news
No,
at the
no,
time?
no,
Like
no.
some sort of new
No.
concrete, environmentally friendly, blah, blah, blah?
Maybe, but no, this one was definitely very private.
Anyway, so yeah.
It spread because the money that we initially thought we were going to make went from, it's funny, it went from like $5 million to $10 million to $20 million to $100 million to $200 million. And the reason why it went so high was the word spread out through around the world, and companies in China, Middle East were saying, if this is what it is, this is how much we want for it. Yeah.
Whoa.
Up to like 500 million, like there was rumors. Because
God, you're
people
only
would
23.
people would value it, because they're capital finance companies. They would value it a certain amount and saying, okay, these people want to make an offer. The biggest concrete company in the world wanted to make an offer, and yeah, we're talking, yeah.
What happened?
It never eventuated because what happened was the guy who created it made too many promises that he could do it, but the problem was we couldn't do it. We went to testings, we tested it. Let's just put it this way. When you create something, there's three things you need to look at. The cost is a big factor. Like you could have a product that can work really well. Like you could do it. I think, you know, a lot of engineers can do it. But the problem is it's too expensive. No one's going to buy it. But to have something that's cheap to make, performs incredibly well, and can be done in a very short period of time, you know, those three things, if you have all those three things, you can wipe out the market and take the market yourself, you know? Because when companies work with construction, the bean counters are going to go, well, wow, this concrete's like 30% cheaper. If we're building this structure, it's going to cost us 30% less to.
Gotcha.
You know, it's lighter, it's stronger, it's cheaper. We could build, you know, instead of waiting 7 days to cure, this thing cures in 3 days. So it's half the
my
time.
God. Okay,
So
I see.
So the goals were so high, but to get there at the right price was virtually impossible. That's the way I saw it.
Okay.
And there was hundreds of versions, hundreds of formulas that they tested to try and get it there, and it never eventuated. And I got burnt out by it, and I left. I go, this is not happening. This is not real. All these promises from the beginning, you know, we were supposed to get there in X amount of time, but we didn't. And I couldn't handle him as well because he was quite rough and abusive. So I had to bail. Couldn't do it any longer. Couldn't put all those hours and years into it without me going anywhere. And that's what it eventuated to. So I left. Because people fell out. You know, when he kept promising these people, yeah, we're going to do it. We're only a month away, we're only a week away. But you can't keep saying that to people when you don't actually have a product.
What were you actually doing here? Were you a part of formulating
the whole process?
Creating this content?
I was helping him
testing
it, formulas, going to all the meetings with these big companies, patenting it. I did everything. I worked 7 days and 15 hours a day doing that with him for about a year.
This is after uni, right?
Yeah, after my first job, I got a job being a case manager for people who are unemployed. I worked there for about a year and a half, 2 years. That's it.
Yeah.
And I need a change.
Okay.
It didn't suit me. I like talking to people. I enjoyed chatting and discussing things with them, but no, I left that and pursued, because this opportunity came up.
How did this opportunity come up?
I met him through there.
Through where? The case that
He was, and he just we started talking. He seemed quite nice, quite genuine, very, very driven, and I think he kind of knew I was very driven too, or wanted an opportunity, so he got me on board.
Right.
And that's how I jumped in, and I realized that opportunity wasn't real. Like, as much as I wanted it to be in my head, I mean, those numbers were real. What I'm talking to you about was actually, these were offers from overseas to this investment capital firm that we were dealing with.
Whoa.
As soon as you have something that's really good, they'll pitch it out to get money, to continue it or to fund it. Yeah. But what we wanted to do was sell the formula. He either wanted to create the formula, sell it and not worry about it again, or the option was to license it and making, a perpetual amount of money, X amount of years, depending on how much they produced.
That's insane. So he came with you with this idea?
Yeah.
And
It was his. It was all his.
And then you're like, this is a cool idea. Let's work together.
Yeah,
and then
I'll help you. I'll throw in some money, invest it in. Yep.
Okay. And then how long did this go on for?
For about 2 years.
Okay.
Year and a half to 2 years, yeah.
So
you
But during that time, I realised how bad he was at making promises and actually not having anything. The idea was there, but I think to formulate it to that point where these companies were waiting, because realistically, you should have a product first before you approach these companies. He did the opposite. He approached them saying, yeah, I think I've got a product. This is what it can do. And they would go, okay, prove it. So the way to prove it, you have to go and test it. And there's third-party companies out there that will test it for you, like structural companies or concrete testing facilities that will test it to see if your product's working the way it is. So they'll do a compression test to crush it, to see how strong it is at X amount of days. So you'd make a batch. That test after 1 day, is it strong enough? They'll tell you how many Newton meters it takes to break. And it's basically to see how fast the concrete cures or hardens over that period of time. And some days we'd get success, like amazing. Wow, it cured in 3 days at this strength. So we're being at the competition. But then you could do all that, but then realize, oh shit, it's too expensive. No one's gonna buy it,
So bro, you bring all this up because you wanted to share that this taught you so much about business
correct.
And working with people.
Yes. So hindsight's amazing. Looking back, I realized, if anything, he taught me about business. As much as I disliked the way he worked, I disliked actually working with him at times. Certain times it was great between the two of us, but then other times it was horrible. He was a shit boss. It was a shit guy to work with. And his personality made it hard for him to do anything right. But if I take something away with what I saw about him, was he's very dogged. He doesn't give up. And he's very driven. And he instilled that in me. I realized that's what it takes. It doesn't necessarily take a good idea. It just takes a person to be that driven to succeed. It's as simple as that. It's hard work, But if you're driven enough, and he was one of the most driven people I've ever met because he believed in what he did so much. And I took that eventually away with me. But it'd be a couple of years before I realized that.
Right.
So moving away from that, I still didn't know what I wanted to do after I left that. Right? I didn't know what to do. I decided I'd go off on my own, start graphic designing, because I had the skills.
Yeah.
Right? I have all this self-taught skill. I've got the drive to start my own business. So I thought, I'll start from scratch. I'll start with nothing. And let's see where it goes. So I started designing for people, started building websites for people, charging X thousands of dollars, whatever. But it was my first foray into business. So I had a business name and everything. I set it up.
What was it called?
Funny, Pushy Wushy.
Pushy Wushy.
As you see in the door. Yeah, I've kept that name since then.
Oh man, I just thought Pushy Wushy was in relation to baby photography. Pushy Wushy.
Well, that's what it evolved into.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So before I got to there, so what happened was, I started that, got clients, got help from family, friends who needed websites, started building, made very little money. I was still living at home, obviously, at 25. It taught me how hard it was to start a business. That first year, I remember getting my financial statement. I looked at it and I thought, I've barely made any money. Like I looked at it, I was like, I think it was something low. Like, I don't know if it's because I started late in that financial year, which I probably did. But when I looked at it, it was like $7,000.
Okay.
I was like, oh, that's all I made? I could have easily went out and made $50,000 elsewhere, working for somebody. So eventually I did, because I thought it wasn't enough. I worked for Sean, who was a mortgage broker, and I graphic designed for him and built his website. But I worked within his company for about a year.
Okay.
So that helped ground me once again. But he's another person who I viewed as quite successful. He told me his story, which was amazing. Started from nothing, built up the business. And I saw him as a very successful guy. Same with the previous guy. The previous guy I worked with, the whole concrete thing, he used to be successful too. He told me his old story and what led him to his downfall, and then obviously starting again, and how dogged he is to try and rebuild his life. So I was in that phase where I thought, I need to rebuild myself too. Like $7,000 a year ain't gonna cut it. Living at home, you can't go out with your friends. You could barely try and do anything. It's a struggle, I eventually,
And websites take a long time.
Oh yeah.
Like one client, how long would it take to make that one website?
About 3 weeks. If you're going full, yeah. Because there's a lot of things you need to collect and code. Back then, a lot of it was coding, but and what made it hard back then too was web browsers were never, there was never a standard. So it'd look fine in Internet Explorer, but Netscape Navigator, it was broken. Right. So then you had to code to make it work on that. Jeez. And then there's another browser, you had to make a code to work on that. So that's what made it, I remember now, thanks for bringing that up, but that made a pain in the butt back then.
Yeah.
I think these days it's much easier. There's a browser standard now that they've all follow. So.
And did you have to deal with hacking back then?
Yeah, but the stuff I did wasn't an issue.
Okay.
The stuff I did was just, early days of the internet, people wanted a presence on the internet. And that's all it was. Give me a 6, 7, 8, 10 page website. To be honest, it was pretty simple. Yeah. I think the graphic design part took me longer than anything else than the actual building the website.
They just saw it as like, this is the yellow pages of the future.
Essentially that. So yeah, think of it back then, the internet was very simple. Okay.
Gotcha. So anyway, moving on, you went from doing that.
Yeah, I went to work for Sean.
Yeah, sure.
So he was I viewed him as a great business leader. So he taught me a lot of things too. So I have these two people that contrasting each other so differently. He had great leadership skills, Sean. He had great charisma. He had great negotiating skills. He could really talk to people. The other gentleman, he was a hard worker. He knew what it took. He knew what it took. So combine those two, you may have the perfect person with the right drive, right? So after leaving him, I decided, you know, I'm gonna go off on my own again. But at that time, I picked up the camera for the first time because he asked me to take portraits of the staff.
Right.
I was like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to get a camera? Who do I call? My brother had a camera. He bought a camera to just shoot around for fun. It was a Canon point and shoot.
Your brother-in-law?
Yeah, my brother-in-law, Kang. So
Dang. Wow.
I took some photos, gave it back to him, and that year, he gave me his camera. Because I said to him, hey mate, look, I'm going to Vietnam on holidays. I don't have a camera. Do you mind if I borrow it? He goes, yeah, sure, take it.
What camera was it?
I don't remember, but I remember it was just it looked like an SLR, but it was automatic.
Nikon, Canon?
No, it was Canon. It was
Canon.
It was a Canon.
Okay.
Which I don't use today, but
Yeah.
it was a Canon, and for 2 weeks I just documented my trip, and I loved it.
In Vietnam.
I fell in love with photography.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's where it started.
You still got those photos?
Yeah, I do.
Dude, you have to show
Very,
me.
very basic.
Still, it's...
point and shoot.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think composition-wise, not everything was amazing, but look, I can definitely show you if I pull it in the archive somewhere.
So that's how you kind of started.
Okay, fell in love with it. Because you know what I found? So going back to being logical, a camera is a very logical device. If you think about it, you need the right f-stop, the right ISO, you know, the right shutter speed, that combination, and the right thinking, when to use it and when not to use it. To me, it was very logical.
Yeah.
But the beautiful part of it was there was a creative side to it as well. So for me, it was a perfect blend because I was very logical on one side, but I was also very creative in another. And the camera was it. Like the camera was me in one, if I thought about it.
Yeah.
So that's what it,
technology involved, creativity.
I love tech. And camera at that stage, you know, digital cameras were really taking off at that time.
It was.
And they were getting better and better. And somehow it brought me back to my Photoshop days, you know, and I started going, well, if I can take these photos, I can edit like the pros. You know what? I think I can do these ads and posters. I think I can do it.
Right.
I believed it. I knew inside I could do it. So I took that and I started snapping away my own photos and started editing. And I realized that all those things were coming together. And I fell in love with it right away. It just felt right. But on that trip, funnily enough, something inside me said, you're going to be a photographer, you're going to be good at this, you're going to enjoy it, do it, and you're going to take great photos. That was the moment on that holiday with that camera.
Wow.
Yep.
So we have to blame Kang.
He was one part of the process.
Yeah, definitely. That camera that you had.
Yeah, that camera. So,
Man, do you reckon it's still around somewhere, or?
you know, he might have it somewhere still. I believe he might have it. I'm not sure if he would.
Dude, you have to ask him.
Maybe. It's the first camera. So this was what, 2006?
2006.
Not 13.
Okay.
What's 17 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is getting really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Before we go dive in further, I know your phone's going off crazy. You're expecting a client. Do you want to check that first before we continue?
No. It was someone else that can wait.
Yeah. So.
No, I can keep going.
All right.
Yeah. So, where were we? Okay. So picked up that camera, fell in love.
Vietnam. Yeah.
It just felt right. And I said to my mum, I need a camera. I borrowed some money off her because I was broke. I need a camera, Mum. I'm very sure she lent me money. I don't remember if I used my own money. I may have even used my own money. But anyway, it's not important. The important part was I picked up a Nikon D200. So I researched. I said, that's the camera.
Yeah.
That was my first camera I purchased with a lens.
That was my first camera too.
So I went door knocking for customers. I had a business card.
Designed your own business card, I'm assuming.
I did. It said pushy wushy.
Bushy wushy business card.
Yeah.
Do you still have this business card?
I think so, somewhere.
Oh,
I don't know.
dude.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, so terrible. I thought it was cool, but it was terrible. But I could take photos and then design something for someone.
Okay.
Right? And I remember my friend gave me my first photography assignment. A couple of my friends did, actually.
Don't tell me it was a wedding.
But I practiced. I had practice with... No, it wasn't wedding.
Okay.
I never did wedding. I got straight into product photography the first time I got the camera.
Okay.
Right away. In the early days, it was so hard. I realized it wasn't just taking a photo, putting a light there, and it produced great results. I had to learn.
And Photoshop couldn't save it.
No, I had to learn. Photoshop got me to only a degree, but I had to learn lighting real fast. What made a photo nice? Why does the light work so well on this, in this direction, but not this direction? Why does that object? So my first client was a big food brand company who needed a photographer to shoot all their products for their packaging. So my friend got me that gig, and I remember going to the meeting one day. The boss said, "Have you got a portfolio?"
Oh, shit.
I had no portfolio at the time. I had nothing.
Oh, my God.
I practiced on a few things here and there. My friend's mum had a belt business. I shot some belts just for...
You showed him those model photos from back in the days to Ralph Lauren.
No, none of that. No. I could not show. So I said to him this. I said, this is my negotiating skills. I said, look, unfortunately, I don't have a portfolio. But what I can do for you, I'll shoot it for free. Won't cost you a cent. If you like it, you can pay me. But if you don't like it, we can walk our separate ways.
Wow.
So he goes, okay, fair deal. Here's 10, 20 products. I shot it the way he wanted it, sent it back. Great, got paid.
Wait, what's this product again?
It was just food. It was
Food,
just like
like
packaged, like it was all sorts of food, like biscuits, chips. It was a big variety. He manufactured a big variety of stuff and packaged them. But he needed the images for marketing purposes and for packaging.
Okay.
So on the box, if it was cereal, he needed a picture of a bowl with cereal, and the even photos of the packaging themselves. You need it.
Okay, so how long did it take you to shoot this?
Oh, I don't remember. Probably a few days, 2 or 3 days.
And
Yeah.
you said you had to learn lighting.
Yeah.
So was this the first time you were like, okay, I need to do this job properly and get the lighting right?
Oh yeah. Some of it was on the fly. I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it. But I knew how to make it good after a very short period of time.
What lighting were you using?
I own 2 SB800s. That was it.
Okay. Triggered through the Nikon's TTL thingy.
Yeah, but on manual mode. Yeah. Yep. And I had couple of soft boxes and some cardboard reflectors. And I realized once I put those things in, things start to click. I'm like, oh, that's how they do it. Yeah. Oh, that's how you get that reflection on there. Oh, that's how,
You just mucking around at home?
Kept mucking around.
In your mum's house?
Yeah.
In your
Took
room?
up the whole living room. Moved all the couches out. This is it. This is my studio.
Wow.
For the next 3 days.
Had all these food, biscuits and stuff.
And then, because of that job, I was able to I bought my Quad X. I spent, that's when I borrowed money. I need $5,000.
5,000?
It was, I think it was 7.
For a...
It's 5,000 US, so it would have been about 7 for my Bowens
lights.
flash generator, 1,000 watts.
Whoa.
I went all out because I needed it for F16.
Oh my God.
So I need 1,000 watts. I didn't go, and back then lights weren't cheap because there was no Chinese brands back then.
Yeah, man.
So that thing cost me 7,500, 8,000 AUD. More than my camera. But I needed it.
And you're like...
I took the risk. Because I knew I could do it. So I bet on myself.
Wait, so you bought that light for this food shoot? Or was it the food shoot first and then...
The food shoot, no, I kept going with SB800s.
Yeah.
I got 2. Yeah, I all I needed was 2.
So as you were learning, mucking around these SB 900s, 800s,
Yep.
that's when you're like, okay, I need something more powerful.
Yeah, I needed something more powerful. That's right.
Figuring out lighting as you were getting more jobs in, getting a bit more confident.
So I was told about door knocking.
Yeah.
So I went around door knocking to get customers.
Where did you go?
Wetherill Park, street full of shops. Here's my card. This is what I do. My name's DIEN. Hi, how are you? Just dropped it off. Doesn't matter who I saw. Doesn't matter.
Whoa.
Yep. And that's the part of being dogged. Because who's going to give me an opportunity if I don't look for it? No one.
Wow. So out of how many people, like this door knocking, how many people kind of got back to you, do you reckon?
Not many. Funny. So not many. So let's just say I had 2,000 flyers. There were times where I actually posted it out too. I paid Australia Post a fortune. I paid them like $1,000. Posted it out for me. And then I went door knocking too. Because I learned that.
Did you also advertise on internet?
Yeah, I did. I did all that. But early days, and I didn't know much about optimization. It didn't really work for me. So occasionally I pick up a client. And the great thing was they became a long-term client. And let me tell you, I was still designing it at that stage too.
Okay.
So it wasn't just pure photography.
You're giving like a bit of a package.
Yeah.
Photos
I could, or sometimes it was just a design job. Hey, DIEN, I need you to design this. And word of mouth became good. People started referring me. Oh, this is what my friend DIEN does. You know, he'll do a website, he'll design your collateral, he can take your pictures as well. Okay, early days. And the customers that I got, they weren't that many, but they were important to me. So I had to do my best to keep them. Because it became a regular income. Yeah, occasionally you'd have that one odd job where you just do it once and that's it. That's normal. But then there were the ones that always came back to you, and that's where I built that regular income. Yeah. So those product shoots got more and more. I picked up more clients doing other different photography shoots, and then the photography side started expanding. And I knew right away this is the direction I want to take. Not design, graphic design, not web design. It was photography.
Wow.
Because I loved that so much more. And I knew I was a way better photographer than I was a designer or a web designer. Those things I could do, but I wasn't great at it. Yeah. But I knew I was great at photography. And so what I did was I diverged, just shifted a bit, took that pushy-wushy name, said, I'm doing family photos.
Okay.
I started taking some family kids stuff, and I thought, I've got some really great ideas I think I could do, because I felt already that time, any business at that time, you had to be different to succeed. You had to be really different. And kids and families were really accessible to me. Like I could get a family and go out and shoot, But I came up with ideas, because of my Photoshop skills, I had all these crazy ideas to do very different family portraits.
Wait, is this because also your sister had kids? Did that kind of where?
No, at the time she didn't have kids yet.
Okay.
Yeah. She didn't have any kids yet.
So your friends, aunties, uncles?
Yeah, just
kids?
Friends.
Your friends started having...
one of my friends. I remember she was one of my first customers. It was her. She introduced me to her sister. She had two kids, and that's one of the earliest shoots. And I remember going, she wanted portraits. I said, I can do that. But I thought, let's do something a bit more. And I had to somehow throw him, instead of just retouching with Photoshop, I feel like I could provide something a bit more artistic than just that. So I remember shooting in her house with my $7,500 flash, my D200, a blank wall, and I created something from it. I added artwork behind the image and everything, and it became a really, to me, it was a very pretty portrait, and it was fun. It was fun for the kids. It looked fun for the parents when the photos were on the wall. It was just great. And I thought, I think I can, if I keep coming with more of these ideas, I can really build something that's different to any other photographer out there, which everybody's the same.
And I know
Outdoor,
sorry to interrupt. I know you've got this image, right? You've still got it backed up somewhere.
Yeah, I do.
This first
I've got all my photos.
Man, you got to send it to me.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
Yeah.
And from that, it gave me the inspiration to create very unique family photos. So the stuff like you see on that wall there.
Yeah.
And once again, it applied my creative side heavily,
So you just really
and my
wanted to do
Photoshop
it
side.
differently.
Totally. I said, if I'm going to build a business, I got to be different to everybody else.
Okay.
And it kind of worked. So I came up more. I built a small portfolio. I built my own website. Had everything in place. Designed my own flyers. Started mailing out flyers to people, and it was hard. It was hard to get customers, man. It wasn't easy. As creative as I thought I was, the response probably wasn't as good as I thought it would be. And yeah, it was a slog. It didn't come as easily as I thought it would. It was a slog. I paid money. Actually, I made frames for every single creative photo I had. I'd make like 10 of them.
Wait, you made your own frames?
No, I'll send it to a framer.
Okay,
I printed it out.
Gotcha.
Went to a framer. I
had to organize all those things.
I went out to Wetherill Park Stocklands. Paid for a week to set up a table out there and advertise.
In the shopping centre?
In the shopping centre.
In the plaza?
Yep. Went to Carnes Hill, did the same.
Wow.
Did it a number of times. It was so expensive. It was like $3,000 for a week or something like that. It was a lot for me back then.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah. It was,
and every day you're setting up.
Every day.
With your prints.
Sit there all day, all night.
Printed out some of your pricing and stuff.
I mean, my photos were creative enough for people to come by and look.
Okay.
It caught people's attention.
And this is around 2008?
2008? Yeah, 2007. 2007. It gave me some traction because I started getting customers. But then where do I shoot? Was the other issue. Not everybody's home was suitable for it. Lucky enough, my brother-in-law and sister had a big enough house where they had kind of cathedral ceilings. So what that meant was I could put a paper backdrop really high, install a system there kind of permanently, and roll it out for shoots. So I'd kindly ask them, hey, do you mind if I shoot from the back of your house? I know it's annoying, and I know I have to bring customers in, and it's not ideal.
That's a big ask.
It was a big ask, and I still feel it today. Like it wasn't, because it takes up their time and their space.
Yeah, man.
Especially on weekends, it started getting tough. I felt like.
Wait, is this their like living room or something? It's one of the spares.
Yeah, it was big. They had big enough space.
Yeah, but you had big paper backdrop.
Yeah, permanently set up there. Yeah, on the wall.
Climbed up Jordan holder.
Yeah. Put it up.
Oh wow.
2 rolls, grey.
And your sister's like,
that's what I
my brother.
And I brought my gear every time I had to shoot, and I shot out of the house. How
many customers did you have there? Like,
I don't know.
Handful, like, are you talking 10, 20?
20, yeah, 20, 30. I got to the point where I can't keep doing this here. And I think a couple of times there was a couple of rough experiences, and I thought, I can't be here.
What do you mean rough experience?
Oh, I felt like customers were taking too long to decide what they want.
Yeah. Crying babies.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, it takes up, if I had a customer that took half a day, that's half a day out of their time in their home.
Oh, man.
So you understand, it's
week
in, week out, it's going to get tough.
Yeah.
So it's kind of starting to take traction a little bit, and I'm still designing, so I'm making some money, because I say this to people sometimes. When I first looked at my first financial statement, it's like, oh, I made $7,000. I mean, that first one, $7,000.
Mm.
Second year, I made $14,000. Like, okay, not bad. 14, doubled it. See if I can double again next year. I did. By the second year on, I think I made $25,000, $30,000.
Okay.
I was like, okay, not bad. Third year. Let's see if I can double that again. So it was essentially that. I was essentially just trying to, but it didn't double. After that, it got harder and harder.
Okay.
You know, yeah. So I got to, 70,000, 80, it eventually got more, but at the back of your head, you kind of go, I could have just go work for somebody and make that $60,000, $70,000 and be done with it, be okay with it. But I didn't want that. Financially, it made sense to go out and just work for somebody. It really did. It really did.
It's more stable, it's more safer, consistent.
Stable, safer. Because when you do that at a young age, I had to make a sacrifice. You make sacrifices. One, when you sacrifice money, it limits what you can do in life. It limits you from hanging out with your friends, like traveling with them. I can't afford to, I'm sorry.
So you missed out on a lot of the boys' trips and stuff with your mates?
Yeah, but lucky my mates never did that.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad my mates were into the very simple things.
Okay.
So we hung out a lot.
Cool.
But we didn't do the fancy things. So I didn't really travel when I was in my 20s. So my 20s, I look at my 20s as when I was essentially broke. I had all these dreams, or I was broke. But looking back, had I started having a full-time job in my early 20s, I'd be in a way different position. You know what I mean? It's hard to say, but it is what it is, and it's where it's led me today. So, would I go back and do it again? I don't know, because just even talking to you, thinking about it, reminded me of how little I had for so long. I went, and failures in my 20s. I went without money for a long time, and just watching people. It's hard to compare yourself at that time. You watch people, build a career. You watch people get a partner.
Start getting married.
They start getting married.
Buying a house.
Having kids. And where am I? Well, I hit my, I was in my late 20s already, just starting a business. I'm like, what the heck? Like, you kind of question yourself, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, I know it feels good. But financially, it was a struggle, man. Yeah, it's hard not to compare. Like you say, run your own race. Okay, sure.
Stay in your own lane.
Stay in your own lane. Yeah, sure. But there's a part of you that says, these years go by real quick. You either got to work really hard or something's got to change. And that question's always there. And
did you ever have moments where like the pressure and the stress was so much where like it affected your creativity and?
No.
Or you
because
always?
I think I was stubborn.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're like, I got to really go for this.
Yeah. So it never got to me in that sense.
And you reckon?
Because I always had that bigger picture in my head.
And you reckon you got that from the concrete guy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Being dogged. Never giving up. Never, as hard as it was. There was days I'd look out the window, sit there and go, oh, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't often, but occasionally it'd come by and go, man, I only make $15,000, $20,000. Like what? It's not enough. It's not. It's.
You make more Maccas.
I thought I'm not going to have a girlfriend because who's going to want to date a broke guy?
Oh man.
So I kind of ignored that a lot of the opportunities because of that. I did that on purpose.
You were single for ages.
I was single for ages. Yeah. As much as I didn't want to be, because I thought I met some really nice people, and some didn't work out, but others I just thought it made me hold back because I was a little bit ashamed that I was broke. Is the best way to put it.
Damn.
Yeah, I was a little bit ashamed, but it didn't bother me. I still didn't let it bother me,
Okay.
But I felt it. I felt, she likes me, but does she really want to date me? Like, I'm broke. She's got a lovely full-time job, career, and what girl out there would want to date? That's how I thought. That's what I actually thought. So,
Wow.
I didn't have, you know, a proper stable girlfriend that I took home to meet the family and that for a long time. Until I met Michelle, until 2013. That was 2013. So from 2007 to 2013 was when I was working my butt off.
Yeah.
Trying to make something out of my career.
And I believe I met you at around when you first did the wedding dress photo.
I did,
For my
with
mum.
your sister.
That would be like
with Nat.
2000 and...
That's 2011.
Yeah.
So I was already kind of running this race. I felt, all right, we're getting somewhere by 2011. But before I'll get there. So all those shopping centers and things.
Yeah.
That helped. But I had to get out of my brother and sister's home.
Yeah, that's right.
So the idea, maybe I need a studio, came along.
That's where the idea came from.
Yeah. The craziest thing, right? So here I'm scratching my head going, I can't be there because it's going to cause, you know, and it's not my place. So talk to my mum. So how am I going to get a studio? I need a space to work from because customers will come, but you can't. I know a lot of photographers still do it today. I know a whole bunch of them, being that I run a studio and I meet photographers all the time, and I get to see how they start. And our stories are very similar. Most photographers will work straight from their home for a very long time, especially if they're not in the wedding industry, if they just want to do portraits.
Just to save costs on extra...
The overheads are stupid.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on first hand, I can tell you that. So I thought, we've got to get a space.
Jeez.
Yep.
It's the $7,000 light thing, but bigger.
Well, bigger, but scarier.
Way scarier.
Because my income was steady in the sense I knew I was getting it by the end of the year, but it wasn't steady enough to pay for something weekly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That weekly, the weekly or monthly overhead was huge. Like running, people don't realize. I suppose everyone knows running a business with a shop front or anything, you've got massive overheads. You've got to pay rent, electricity, water,
Insurance,
whatever, strata. You know, you got all those bills that never stop. So your customers can't stop. And I learned real fast what cash flow meant. So there I was, like, once again, my parents stepping and goes, "You really want to do this? You know, let's look at doing it." Yeah.
Whoa.
So this is almost like round two for me. Round two.
Because they would have seen you go through the concrete thing.
That's right. It's scary. I mean, my mum was always the entrepreneur in the family, and she had her own failures in the past. Not necessarily her fault, but sometimes business doesn't work out for whatever reason. You know, businesses can fail for many different reasons. And I always felt for her because I always felt like, okay, me doing this for the second time, there is no chance I'm failing. Like in my head, like I can't fail. I have to make this work. For me, number one. Two, to show my dad that I can do this, because I think he was a bit worried, a bit skeptical. And three, to give my mum that kind of, I can't think of the word, but almost affirmation that we can do it as a family. I'll help you because I want you to succeed. This is the way she's always felt about her kids. I'll help you, whatever you need, we'll do it. We'll do it. But man, when we got the studio, my heart was beating 100 miles an hour because I've never been in a position where I had to meet targets every month to pay to run this place.
Wait, so did your mum, dad go looking together?
Yeah, we all
like,
did.
we got to find space.
Yeah.
Let's find one closer to home.
Everywhere.
And you ended up on this one, the one we're sitting in right now.
The one we're sitting in right now. So, I've managed to keep it for 17 years. Actually, is it 17? No, apologies. So it was 2009 when we got it.
Yep.
Opened the studio. 2009, we're 2023. Yeah, 14 years. Apologies. 14 years, and here I am today. The most stable ever.
Now.
Yes.
Okay, so you got the studio. Your heart's beating like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
You're only on 20, 30 grand-ish a year.
Yeah.
How much? I don't.
Well,
you don't have to share your numbers, but
I don't. These are just rough numbers, but it grew. It grew. It grew a little bit quicker than that. I think I may have been on more than that, but a lot of what happened was everything I earned was always reinvested back into my business. So I wasn't necessarily making money for myself. It was making money to, one, to survive, two, to reinvest into it so it could build itself even further. So that's another thing that a lot of business people will say to you, or entrepreneurs have gone through it, would be that, you know what, whatever you make, you actually reinvest a lot of that back into the space or the business. And I did that for this space. I reinvested all my money. You know, if I made $60,000, $70,000 a year, a lot of that would go to this. Reinvested in equipment, reinvest in whether it's marketing or just anything.
it's like watering your own plant.
Yeah, and essentially a lot of that was equipment. I needed more gear to become a professional. So I'd pick up stuff a little bit here every year, and then before you know it, like yourself, you've over 5 to 10 years, you've accumulated stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that you might not use anymore, but you've got all this gear that help you get the job done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I worked my butt off, put all the money back in. Once again, sacrifice travel, sacrifice girlfriend, partner, whatever, but kept myself happy and motivated enough to keep going.
Wow.
And then looking back today, my trajectory's gone like this. So today I'm as stable as ever, and that was because I took a risk. I asked my parents to take a risk with me and believe in me that I can do it. And I had to get whatever work I could get, even if I hated the job. You take all the small jobs, you take all the big jobs, you take stuff that you don't even like doing.
Like casino chairs. Remember?
Yeah, I do.
I had to help DIEN shoot various casino chairs.
But that's a great paying job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It ended up being, you know, I'm always grateful. I'm always thankful for all the jobs that I get, because it's kept me alive and afloat, and it helps me improve and do better for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never necessarily reject the small jobs, because every dollar counts. Yeah, every dollar counts.
Wow, man.
Yeah. And I've now built something that I'm happy with, in the sense that I'm sharing the space now. I changed that about myself too, about being more, because I had no photographer friends back then. Today I do. I changed the mindset of being kind of closed, secretive. Now I'm just open, meeting people. I got friends in the industry that I never used to. It was so much more fruitful to have those relationships. I think you were one of my first photography friends. I'll be
thanks,
100% honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Prior to that, I had no links, I had no peers, I had no one to look to. But because of that, it's grown my business even further. People use my space. I'm happy to share the space. I rent it out to other photographers, videographers, and now people know my business. They know where I'm located. They know what the space is like. They know what I'm like to deal with. And I'm so happy that I've gotten to where it is today. And there's more I want to do. So
Yeah.
it kind of never ends, because you've always got different goals in mind, but it's led me to where I am today. So all the wonderful people that have come through here, whether it's customers, whether it's renters, I appreciate every single one of those people that have stepped through here.
That's cool.
So You know,
Yeah.
you can build something from nothing with the right drive. If someone can take anything away from what I'm telling you, it's that if your drive is strong enough, you can make it work.
Well, what would you say to someone who's kind of going through this grit, this struggle, feeling like, man, what the hell am I doing? Like, it's hard to get this business up and going.
It is.
We're getting into a recession soon. Money is a big freaking thing right now.
Totally. And I've been through one of the biggest ones. When I first started this business, 2008 was when the financial crisis happened.
What was that like?
Quiet. It went quiet. It really did. The phone didn't ring for a good 6 to 8 months.
Is that happening now? They say there's going to be a...
Yeah. So what it does, when you go through something like that, you're more cautious and prepared for things like that now.
Okay.
So I've always told myself to be cautious when things like that happen, because at any moment you could go quiet and you don't get work. And if you don't get work, how's the business going to fund itself? And that never leaves my mind. But if I'm well prepared enough, and I can, whether I save, whether I work out a new strategy to keep the business going, then I'll do it. But I feel like I've built up enough clientele and business, and people know my business, that I'll be okay. So I kind of have that bit more confidence than I was, say, 10 to 12 years ago. I wouldn't be as confident. Yeah. But if you're asking me how I'm feeling now, everything seems to be normal.
Okay.
At the moment for me. Yeah. I thought there'd be a bigger fall, but it hasn't really happened just yet. Yeah, to be honest. But advice?
Yeah.
About someone that's struggling. So I always say the good thing to do sometimes is kind of reassess you. So what I mean by that is reassess what you're doing, look at how you're doing it, look at what you need to change, write down the things that aren't working, and then write down the solutions for it. You can only do a little bit here and there. I've got a list of goals, but I also have a list of things I need to do to get those goals. And I think when you break that down, it really helps. And even listening to other people. So you ask me all the time.
Yeah.
You ask me for advice all the time. I sometimes feel like I give you the same advice.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of you, and I feel like if anything, it's just you just being proactive about it. Sometimes you hear me repeat myself. Okay, Kawhi, where's your portfolio?
Oh yeah, still haven't got that up yet.
That's what I mean.
I've got something up, but it's not at the level.
That's right. So what do you need to do? Like you already know the answer.
I need to create some sort of like a PDF booklet with my portfolio.
Absolutely.
And should be sending it out to potential clients.
Yeah, and that's the dogged part. It's hard work, but it has to be done. Like even now, if you ask me about where's mine, well, I'm actually rebuilding mine at the moment. To prepare myself to go out now once again. I've reached you'll reach a point where you update and you'll want to meet the right people to get you that sort of work. So for example, I always said you started building this food portfolio. I say jump on it. There's enough range in what you have to put together to get yourself, trust me, more work in that niche. Because in our industry, a lot of it's got to do with being in a niche.
Yeah.
Not necessarily shooting everything, but hey, I've got a great food portfolio. It's unique. It's different to every other guy. And I want to show you. You need to just show the right people.
Yeah.
It's a numbers game. That door knocking, it's a numbers game. And keep in mind, one opportunity, one network that you build can lead to many jobs. It could be the right agency, it could be the right client. And that's all and if you say to yourself, well, if I can get one a year, just one, over 5 years, and retain those people, then you've got this nice reoccurring work. Yeah, people drop out, come and go, people change jobs, but a lot of what we do in our industry is has to do with networking and staying in touch with the right people.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a massive business aspect about what we do. Not just being a creative. People call us creatives, but
wear many hats.
Yeah, but with my business, I've always taken the business approach, more so than the creative approach. Creative approach is when I get the job. Yeah, that's only the time the creative part comes in. The rest of the time, it's mundane business. Yeah. So, look at it that way.
I can edit this part out. It's up to you, but right now, do you feel like a lot of the money's coming in through the rentals, more so than your own creative work?
No. Rentals bring me a small portion, a percentage of my income. Yeah, compared to my photography brings more.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. I would say I'm still building my rentals.
All right.
I've got targets I want to reach, and they're getting there. And I knew same thing. It's almost like another side of my business that I'm building slowly. Yeah, I'm almost in no rush, but yeah, it's moved up year by year, so it's good. Yeah.
I want to let you be the driver of this part. What direction do you want to go now in terms of what would you like to share? If someone's listening to this, watching this, what would you want them to know?
Okay. Probably a lot. Look, if I was to recap, you recap my business life or what I do today. It's a matter of hard work and being prepared for the opportunities that come. Opportunities do come, but if you're not prepared for it, you won't be able to catch it. Yeah. I remember hearing that advice a long time ago, and that's always been the case. Yeah, I mean, opportunities come all the time, but I got to be at the right moment. I got to be prepared to take it.
And what are some quick ways that you prepare?
Simple things like, once again, portfolio. Someone asked me, "Have you got this, DIEN?" Yeah. This is what I do. Send it right away. Because some things are just timing. Right time, right moment, right portfolio in what I do. But yeah. I gave that advice as a general piece of advice. I think that can be applied to any kind of industry, any kind of person who's working for themselves.
I guess we could always go deeper on another episode into the full nitty-gritty of like photography industry, negotiating, all that sort of stuff. But I think for this one, we'll wrap it up soon. But I guess I want to ask you, I guess the hot topic right now is, because you mentioned Photoshop, AI.
Oh yeah, the big game changer.
Tell us,
Totally.
what do you feel about this whole AI thing, man?
At the moment, I feel it can help me in many different ways. I think it takes the legwork out of a lot of things, and we're in the early stages. So if you ask me if it's going to remove photography, no. I don't think it will, because I believe that with creativity, you still need people. To what degree with photography, I'm unsure at this stage, but from what I can see and do, I can use it as a tool still to help facilitate what I'm already doing. So whether if I need backplates, if I need extra, if I needed to change a certain aspect of my image, or if it helps me retouch faster, then I can see it working that way for us. Whether it replaces photography completely, if I look at it in the 3D world, where when 3D started coming up and people doing products with 3D, it hasn't overtaken photography. It's just become another niche. So I'm thinking AI is more of a niche and a tool than completely replacing photography. So that's where I see it so far. We always get the alarmist approach, when we see new technology come in. You know, Photoshop's going to ruin photography, or 3D's CGI is going to ruin photography. I heard that before. Yeah, but it hasn't. Yeah, companies have used CG to help push certain images or graphics where it's motion or stills, but it hasn't replaced photographers.
Yeah, because for example, say expensive Rolex watch. Okay, traditionally you'd have a whole team to capture this one watch.
Yep.
Set design, like all that, and then retouching.
Yep.
Whereas now you could just jump on AI and just
generate that. Yeah, generate the sets, generate the props. Yeah, I think it still may go that way. I also think on a smaller scale market where the customers have low budgets, they'll go that direction, using completely AI. I think the customers are here.
Yeah, we've got a quick customer, so we'll pause real quick.
Yeah. Hey guys, how you going? Good, good.
All right, so guys, sorry to cut off so abruptly, but DIEN had a customer come into the shop, so we had to show them. But yeah, just want to say thanks for your time, for sharing a bit about that.
Yeah, no worries.
And there could be some potential future episodes where we go even deeper into DIEN's story.
Let's go this way.
And yeah, is there anything you want to say?
Nothing much more to add. It's just that I guess I'm a little bit honoured to be able to share the story a bit with somebody, because not many people know my journey. So
yeah, it's definitely a cool, inspiring journey and story, bro. That's very inspiring, especially for me as another photographer. So yeah, just want to thank you for all the times that you've been there for me and the advice that you've given me that I still need to apply and do. But yeah, man.
I'll just keep drilling it in.
So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much if you've gotten this far, and let us know if you have any more questions. If you have any more questions for DIEN, any specific things that you want to know about his studio or his photography career, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And yeah, we'll definitely be doing more episodes to show you a bit more about Smack Studios and DIEN's work. So yeah, stay tuned. Thanks guys.
Thanks guys.
See ya.